Before we dive in, if you want to sell more web design projects at higher prices without feeling pushy, salesy, or like you're ripping people off, you're invited to join me for a live training on Friday, September 5th at noon Eastern, all about the 5 secrets to high converting web design proposals. You'll walk away from this training feeling ready to sell more web design projects at higher prices than you ever thought possible. So to save your seat, just go to webdesigneracademy.com/proposal. Enter your name and email address to register, and we'll send you all of the details. That's webdesigneracademy.com/proposal. Welcome to The Profitable Web Designer, a podcast for web designers who want to work less and make more money. I'm your host, Shannon Mattern, founder of the Web Designer Academy, where we've helped hundreds of web designers stop undercharging, overworking, and create profitable, sustainable web design businesses. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Profitable Web Designer podcast. Today, I am joined by Alyssa Downey, who is the founder of Make Your Design Matter, where she helps ambitious, self-employed designers nail their processes, wow their clients, and grow their businesses. And Alyssa spoke at the Simply Profitable Designer Summit this year. We met there, and one of the things that I loved about her and her presentation is how she's like all in on building relationships and building deep relationships with her clients to just continue to serve them and create recurring revenue in her business. So I just am happy to have this opportunity to have you on the podcast and just get to know you better. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I'm so excited to talk.
I know it's been like months since we connected and it's finally happening. So yeah, I would love to just hear a little bit more about your journey. How did you get started like in design? What's your origin story?
Sure. I love talking about this because I feel like it takes like a turn. It like doesn't start the way that would be expected. But so I also am a brand and web designer. I own a business called Amped Designs. And I actually started using the name Amped Designs in high school to design gig posters and album art for local bands.
Oh, that's awesome.
I just like really love music, but I'm very introverted. I feel like it doesn't come off that way now because I've learned how to talk to people, but I was extremely introverted in high school. So there was no way I was going to like perform on a stage, but I was artsy. So I started doing the gig posters and album art. And so then I went to college with the goal of working in the music industry. I started a music magazine in college. I used to interview bands and I would design and write all the pages every month. And I interned at a major record label while I was in college, which was an amazing experience that I would not trade. And I'm so glad I had that opportunity. It was so fun. But I also kind of realized through that experience that design for music was not as fulfilling as I'd expected it to be. I had just been like in my college classes, I had been focusing a lot on branding and just general graphic design and putting a lot of like concept and meaning behind design decisions. And not that that can't be present for design for music, but it just wasn't. I was really craving the challenge. It was a lot more just like slap some text on this photo. And I just felt like I would always be craving more if I stayed on that path. So I shifted to branding, which I also really enjoyed, like I mentioned, and like never looked back, even though music still has a place in my heart. So yeah. And then, I should also mention web design. I did kind of study a little bit of that in college, although at the time that was like the beginning of when builders were just starting to come out. And so my classes were really focused on like custom development from scratch. And I was not very good at that because it's very hard. So most of my web design knowledge came after graduation from taking courses and going to summits and just learning by doing it myself. And yeah, so that's my
So I love that every single person I've talked to, whether they started off in design or like some other career, kind of had that like pivotal moment where it was like, oh, this thing that I'm doing is not fulfilling me in whatever type of way, whether it's creativity, whether it's freedom, whether it's flexibility. Like they have that like inflection point almost where they're like, oh, I did all the things that I thought I was supposed to do or that I was told I should do in order to be quote unquote successful. And you find yourself like interning at a major record label, like what a dream. And then also like having that moment where you're like, this is not for me for the rest of my life. And what then I know this is going to be kind of a deep question, but like what gave you the courage to not follow the path?
Hmm, that's a good question. And also, I know exactly what you mean. I feel like I hear this from a lot of not even just designers, but entrepreneurs
Yeah.
too. And I do think about this a lot as well because we, especially anyone who's like in my age group, which is range of 30s, I feel like when we were growing up, it was like drilled into us. These are the things that you have to do to be successful.
Yes.
Yeah. And in college, I went to a design school. So it was not a traditional career path and by many standards, but even there were a lot of things that were drilled into us that was like, this is what success in design looks like. Like you have to
Mm.
graduate and work for this big design agency and your work has to be seen all over the world. And they would show us examples of alumni that worked on huge campaigns. And that's what I thought success was. And so I guess that's not really answering your question, but yeah, I guess like with my shift, I was like initially driven by just like this love of music. I just wanted to be involved in this. And I didn't really feel like it was that big of a change, to be honest,
Yeah.
because I still loved design. And this is something I also talk about a lot when I'm talking with clients is that like I was initially inspired by music, but the thing that I really love about working with businesses is like really getting to know them and
Yeah.
learning how they built their business. And that's what's really inspiring to me. So it's like the core is just this admiration of what someone else is doing, which is sort of the same thing in a weird way. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
totally see that. And it's like we're looking at, and this happens even now in like how you should run your web design business or whatever. Like when you get to, even when you do decide, I'm not going to like follow the same path as what I'm being told is quote unquote success because that doesn't feel aligned or it doesn't feel good or it doesn't feel right or that's not what I want, but that's what I'm being shown is like, oh, in order to be successful, you have to, for you, it was like, go work at an agency and have your work in these huge campaigns all over the world. Then we'll show our other students that that's like the pinnacle of success. For me, I went to school for marketing and communications, and it was similar. It was like get a job at an agency and work on these big campaigns and do PR and all of this stuff. And like, I ended up doing data entry at a law firm in the marketing department. Like, that's not like, and then working my way up the corporate ladder to a quote unquote marketing position where I'm basically just like doing spreadsheets and sitting in board meetings all the time. Like, it's at some point, then you're like, why am I even doing this? And this, like, I was just thinking about, like, or how we're told what does a successful web design business look like? And it's this arbitrary, like, oh, 5-figure revenue months, etc. Like, it looks like this. You have a team, it's an agency. You're not successful unless you've like checked these boxes. And I think it's so interesting to explore, like, oh, we get to decide, like you did.
yeah.
exactly what that looks like for us on our own terms, for our own life, for ourselves. And it's a bold move to like make that decision.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to, I guess, bring that back to actually answer your question. So I initially worked for design studios, but I never actually worked for a big agency because I just could not bring myself to do that like crazy lifestyle and just like trade my mental health for working 24/7. But then I went to school in New York and I worked in New York for a few years, and my husband and I decided to move to Asheville, North Carolina, where we live now. And at the time, well, still, there are not a lot of in-house design positions in Asheville. So I was like, well, I guess I'll try working for myself. And at the time, I'm honestly like a little embarrassed to admit this, but it felt like failure because nobody that I knew from school or even just peers in New York owned their own design business, except for people who were at a way higher level than the average self-employed designer. And
Yeah.
it like took me a long time to accept that just because I was moving, it was not that I couldn't do it. It was that I chose not to. Because I know if I had stayed in New York, I could have gone down that path and I could have worked on big brands and whatever, but that was never fulfilling for me. And I didn't want to do that anyway. So
That's so interesting that like how it was viewed or how you viewed it was like it's not success to go create my own thing, that somehow that's like lacking. And I think a lot of people feel that way too, that like the only path is to, even success would be to like grow a big web design agency and run a big web design agency, but deep down they don't really want that. And so they
mhm.
feel like what I'm doing isn't good enough. So when you moved to Asheville, and total side note, I was at Josh Hall's Web Designer Pro conference talking to someone about you because your
Yes,
reputation,
I knew
your
you
reputation is so good. And
oh,
everybody that knows you loves you.
that's great.
So we were totally talking about you. But when did you let go of thinking that that was a failure and seeing it for like the opportunity that it really was to work for yourself?
So I think one thing that was really fortunate about our move was that what I love about Asheville is that there's a huge community of self-employed designers, and they are very, very community oriented. People are very collaborative. Everyone's so quick to just be like, let me refer you to this person, or like, let's work together on a project and let me introduce you to this so and so. And I think by just initially immersing myself in the self-employed designer community, that kind of helped me shift my mindset from like, I'm just a little freelancer to I own a business, because that's how they were describing
Ooh,
what they did.
yeah.
Yeah. And so like before I moved, and probably for the first year, I did not view what I was doing as running a business.
So tell me more about that. Like how you didn't view, you're like, I'm just a little freelancer. I did not view that as running a business. Now you do see yourself as running a business. What are those differences to you in terms of how you think about it and how you think about yourself?
Well, now I believe that if you are making money working with clients, you're running a business.
1,000%. Yes.
But like I said, I just had never met anyone who had done anything like that. And so it just took me a long time to gain the confidence to like own that title.
Yeah.
And I also, about a year in, took a business class, which was probably like the most pivotal thing that I did, because it it taught me not how to not just be a good designer, but how to run a business. And so that was really helpful. And I think another part of like the initial lack of confidence, though, and I see a lot of people talk about this on social media as well, like friends and family also don't see freelancing, quote unquote freelancing, as running a business. They think this is just like a temporary thing we're going to do until we find a real job. So fortunately, my family has always been supportive, but I do think initially they were like, "You're doing what?" So it all
For
worked out.
sure. Like my, that just made me think of a couple things. Like I climbed the corporate ladder and I got to the place where you're supposed to be happy and
Mm-hmm.
making good money, quote unquote. But at the flip side, I was like, at what cost? Because life felt so stifling and I felt like I had no freedom. I wasn't being fulfilled creatively, but hey, good benefits, whatever. And I felt really guilty for not being happy with that. I was just like, I
Mm-hmm.
should be happy. I should feel grateful. I should feel all of the things that when you have what people say success is, but like if it feels soul sucking, why do you want it? And then when
Mm-hmm.
I decided to leave that, I got this a very similar reaction of like well-meaning friends and family thinking that I'm like doing major harm to myself by letting go of this like security and safety and whatever. And it's like that same kind of thing is like people are saying, "Oh, you're just doing this for now until you get a real job." And on
Yep.
the flip side of that is like, why are you leaving this career that you've put 20 years into building and your benefits and all of this stuff? And I'm like, because I can't see doing this for
Mm-hmm.
another 30 years until I retire. Like, I don't know how you don't leave what you're doing and go do something that like fuels your soul and it's worth it. And I was just talking to one of our Web Designer Academy students having a conversation with one of them the other day about how she started her freelance business and then a job opportunity came up like in web design. And so she took this opportunity and it is horrible and she hates it and she hates her life. And what she's getting from her peers are, you can't leave this. You'd be crazy to go back out on your own and freelance and whatever. And so I'm so glad we're having this conversation because I think there are a lot of people listening to this podcast that maybe are working a day job or want to go out on their own. And what their friends and family will say might be the thing that's keeping them from really pursuing it. So I know I keep asking you these like super deep questions, but I'm
That's
just
great.
curious like, what had to shift in you, or what were your thoughts, or how did you overcome that very real desire to do what you want to do, but still, like, I don't know, fit in, for lack of a better term, with like the people around you who don't understand and don't get it?
Hmm. Well, I also just want to say that I think you can be grateful for what you have and the experiences that you had while still seeking something different. I don't think that
I
means that
think
you're
so
not
too.
grateful.
I felt I had a lot of negative self talk back then, for sure. I had to
Yeah,
do a lot of work on that.
that's really similar to kind of how I felt leaving New York. Because I mean, there's this
Yeah.
saying, you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. I'm like, well, I'm leaving, I'm
Mm,
not making it. But it's like I said, like I chose to leave, I didn't have to. And
yeah.
I'm really grateful for everything that I experienced there. But okay, your question was
It's,
about, sorry.
yeah, just no, like, I know. My question was just about like, how do you still blaze your own trail when your well meaning peers and family are like, oh, that's nice that you're just freelancing in the meantime till you get a real job?
So, like I said, I am very fortunate. My immediate family, like my parents, have always been supportive, and
Yeah.
I know that they are just looking out for me, but also very proud of anything that I do, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
As far as like other friends, other family members, even now I still think that it's hard for them to understand what exactly I do and that this is a real like business because they haven't done this themselves.
Yeah.
And so I just personally I try not to get offended by anything because there's just some battles that it's not worth having. It
Agreed.
doesn't really matter.
Yep.
It's like if they want to think that I only make 10K a year, then they can think that.
Yeah.
Like that's not, I don't know. It just doesn't really matter to me.
I love that.
I'm more focused on surrounding myself with like people like you and other designers in Asheville who are self-employed and people who understand what we're doing here.
I love that.
I know a lot of people do get very offended when people don't seem to understand or they ask questions that can come off a certain way, but it's just, I don't know. I just always just kind of like try to put myself in their shoes. I'm like, they just don't get it, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I also think too that it's like they've never considered that there's any other way to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And their comments are coming not out of thinking that like you're not good enough or that you won't succeed. It's like almost always out of like love and fear and wanting the
Yeah,
best for you, not about being
exactly.
like critical or to be like, who do you think you are? You're not good enough to do that. It's usually about like,
Yeah.
I'm scared for your future. And are you sure that this is like the right thing for you? And I think that's just always one of those things as like freelancers that, like you said, it is so important to connect with other people who are like minded and have been through those challenges because you can't go it alone. And I think that's one of the things that, like, you connected with your community in Nashville, but you also help other designers move through those stages of figuring out how they want to build and run their business. And I know I'd love to hear more about like that journey. Like, when did you decide, like, I could actually help other people navigate this freelance thing and use what I know and what my experience to help them? When did that occur in your timeline?
Yeah. I am curious if other design educators can relate to this too, but honestly, there were just so many people asking me for advice. And I'm like very generous with free advice and having conversations in DMs and things like that. And I think I just got to a point where I was like, why don't I actually like create a platform for this? And so I started making downloads and I started making social media content for designers. And then eventually I separated it onto its own platform, Make Your Design Matter. Still like fairly integrated with my business, but that's been fun to just have everything under its own umbrella.
So, at the Simply Profitable Designer Summit, your topic was all about creating recurring revenue through building repeat relationships with your clients. So, can you share a little bit more about like your philosophy of how you develop those deep relationships with your clients to keep them coming back over and over so you're not constantly going out and getting new clients?
Yeah. So I guess if I really think about the why behind this, I think because I'm like more introverted and a little bit of a people pleaser, I like always want people to be happy. And so this was definitely a process to go from just saying yes to everything and doing everything the client wants to actually having like a structure and boundaries. But all that to say, like, I really want people to have a great experience. And because of that, they tend to work with me over and over and over again, which is wonderful. So a lot of what goes into that is not necessarily about just like continuing to create new offers and pitch new things to the same people, but just like treating people really well. and continue to check in and nurture the relationship so that when they do need something, you're the person that they think of again.
Yeah, I think it sounds so obvious and logical on the face of it, but also it's one of those things that I think as business owners and entrepreneurs, we always think of like growth as like more or new or different or whatever. And my experience has been, even in growing like the web designer education side of my business, is that it is the people that I meet and investing in those relationships and that like have created more opportunities for whatever the more is than always going after like new, different, and better. It's like those relationships create more new, different, and
Mm-hmm.
better. And I love that that is like where you put your energy. And so, what are the things that you do within client projects to just create that experience that makes them never want to go work with anybody else ever?
Well, I would say clear communication is a huge thing from the very first moment they reach out before they even book a project, and being super transparent about how everything is going to go and what to expect and costs and everything that could arise, and also boundaries. There are some things that are really important that the client has to do, particularly for web design. Like I don't write content. They have to give me their content. This is really important. If I don't get it, I have to reschedule the project. And so like being able to communicate the importance of that boundary and deadline in a kind way that doesn't scare them off. And then just keeping them informed throughout the process, making sure that they feel comfortable and heard. They feel like they can tell me their feedback and I'm not going to make them feel silly or anything like that. And then along with communications, I would also say something that is really important to me is timeliness. Like if I say I'm going to have a proof in your inbox on Monday, I'm going to do it. And if I can't do it, I'm going to let them know. And it's always like a last resort. But that does go hand in hand with the communication, because like if I'm telling them we're going to finish your website in 7 weeks, like it's going to happen in 7 weeks, not 7 months. And so anyway, all of this, I feel like it sounds like such a silly thing, but it really does stand out to people, because I think you wouldn't believe like how many designers do not communicate clearly. So,
Yeah, I mean, so many designers don't communicate clearly. And I think this is something that you have built into your process so beautifully. And it's not like, I don't think it's because designers like, they don't do it because they're bad business owners or
right.
whatever. But what I see is that designers put so much time, effort, and energy into getting great at design because they think being really good at design will be what gets them more clients, better clients, higher paying clients. And the truth is, there are tons of incredible designers out there that are all amazing at design, equally good. And so, what sets you apart isn't going to be necessarily like, yeah, sure, your aesthetic, your vibe, like your niche, like all of those things,
Mhm.
sure. But then, when within all of those, there's also a lot of other designers who are all really good. And so, when you can make someone feel that their investment is safe with you. It is
Mhm.
like, because this is like their livelihood most of the time.
Mhm.
This is their hard earned money. This is their time. It's their heart and soul that they're like handing over to a designer. And all of the things that you just said, like the clear communication, the safe feedback, the timeliness, the commitment to your word, the communication if you need to renegotiate those things. Those are all skills that they're not natural to everyone. They're natural to some people, I think, but I don't think that they come naturally. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like as a designer, investing in learning those skills and those systems and those processes from people who are really good at that can be the difference between a one and done project with a client who's like, yeah, it looks great, but is never going to come back to you again.
Mm-hmm.
And what you experience, which is repeat clients, I'm guessing lots of referrals, and people who talk about you in a random conference, however many miles away Columbus, Ohio is from Asheville, because your reputation precedes you, you know?
Exactly. And also, I think it's important to remember that we can't assume that the client understands everything about how our process works. Like the client is not a web designer. They understand that they need to get you content, but they don't really understand why it's so important that it is in on this deadline and why we need that for design and all that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes it's easy to get frustrated when the client doesn't understand something. And I'm not saying that it's always the designer's fault. That's not what I mean to imply at all, but it's also not always the client's fault. And for me, I mean, I spent years just trial and erroring things. Like every time something did not go well in a project, like if a project got dragged out or a client missed a deadline or whatever happens, someone gave me feedback about something they weren't happy with. I would always be like, what do I need to put in the contract or what do I need to do to the process to like prevent this from happening again? And so just by like making little tweaks for years, that is how I got to where I am now. It wasn't just like I just started like this.
I feel like that is so important what you just said, that it's like not always the client's fault. Yes, sometimes we end up working with people who, no matter what boundaries we set, they don't
Yeah.
care. It doesn't matter. And there's no process to be adjusted that could like wrangle this person. And we all have experienced that. And I don't think that is at all what you're talking about, because yes, clients do need to like treat us well and like humans and all of that. And, but I would say like 99 out of 100 or 98 out of 100 clients are not going to be that type of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as like business owners, and we're leaders in the sense of like when we engage in a client project, I do feel like it is our role and responsibility to lead and guide this person through a project. And part of our responsibility as that in that role is to say, where could I have done something differently to make this project more successful?
Mm-hmm.
And always kind of take that ownership and that responsibility of like your own side of the street, in terms of like, they missed a deadline. How is there anything I could have done to make that not happen? Sure, things happen and whatever, and like life happens and whatever. But I love how you were like, over the years, trial and error, I figured out all of the ways to like make my client successful, is really what I hear you saying, is that you've done all of these things to make your client successful. And why wouldn't they want to work with someone that sets them up for success?
Yeah. Well, also like I think it's okay to like feel one thing in private, but then say a different thing to
For
the client.
sure.
But for me personally, it takes a lot for me to be like, this client is such a pain. Like my initial reaction is usually like, oh my gosh, I feel really bad that they are confused. And
Yeah.
that is my fault. Maybe not, but it feels like it's my fault. And I need to like look into it to figure out if it is or not. But yeah.
So you've mentioned a few times like being an introvert, and how some of the processes and systems you've developed and ways you've run your business has like supported that, supported you able to like run your business well as an introvert. Can you share a little bit more about like how you work like with your natural tendency of being introverted versus like trying to make yourself be someone or be a way that you're not naturally like wired to be.
Yeah, that's such a good question. To be honest, like still get a little bit like, I don't know, I see other people on social media who have these very energetic personalities that are so attractive. And I'm like, I wish I was like that, but I'm just not. But I do honestly think that it almost is beneficial for being a designer because a lot of what I do is ask my clients questions and say nothing while they talk. So it actually works out great because I can just listen to them and prompt them to talk more. But I think like other things that are helpful for me are having like lists of questions that I need to ask people before I get on the call, or like if it's a new conversation, like scripting out what I need to say, especially if it's like a difficult conversation, or at least having bullet points and just like anything I can do to make myself feel prepared is helpful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about like social media. I'm like, I should probably be on social media. And then I'm like, no, I shouldn't
And,
because I don't like it. That's not my vibe. I'd rather have an hour long conversation with someone and just be able to like ask them questions and let it go where it goes. And I feel like we do need to just lean into what feels best to us and then like create systems and structures around that to support us
mm-hmm.
rather than like trying to go fit the mold of something else.
Yeah.
Which is what you said. Like you help people ditch that fake it till you make it mindset and help them show up like confident, capable, and trusted. So when people do come to work with you or like use your tools, like what are you providing them with Make Your Design Matter? Like how does that help designers just make their businesses easier?
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of free content and I have a YouTube channel, which I know might seem very weird for an introvert, but it's all scripted.
That's why
But
I'm like, my solo podcast episodes, all scripted. Like, there's no winging it going on over here. I get you. Get you
yeah,
there.
although like I do enjoy natural conversations like this. I think,
Yeah.
and also like I have been doing this for 8 years. Like I've also, when I first started out, I probably would have been terrible for this podcast. But anyway, to answer your question, so a lot of my free content is resources to help you communicate better with clients or set better boundaries. My favorite resource that I have is email scripts for difficult client situations. And there
Ooh.
are also variations for each situation because sometimes they'll be like, well, okay, but if they say this, then you say this. But if they say this, then you say this. So I really wanted to be very comprehensive and helpful. And then on YouTube, I talk about how to get clients, how to set boundaries. I actually just launched the channel a couple of months ago. So I have so many
You're
things
speaking
that
my
I want
love
to kind of
language with
talk
all
about.
of this.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I really focus on like the business of design, the client facing process, the client experience, eliminating hiccups from the process, and also not just making the client happy, but like also being happy yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. So just all really comes down to like running a sustainable business.
I want to talk a little bit about difficult client situations because I think that, like, they're okay. So I see web designers who are like, I want more clients. I want better clients. I want to have bigger projects. I want to make more money. And on the flip side of that, they're like, but if I do that, then I might have to have more difficult conversations,
Mm-hmm.
like, they think it's going to be more pressure to perform or create results. And so what I see is like a real fear of success that maybe they don't realize is why they're actually not marketing their business, not charging higher prices, not going after
Mm-hmm.
the bigger clients that they are more than capable of handling and taking on projects like that, because the worst thing that their subconscious fears is like, what if I have to have a difficult
Mhm.
conversation with this client? So when you say, I have all of these scripts to help you have difficult conversations with clients, I love that you put that together, because difficult conversations affect our business more than just the discomfort of having the conversation. It can prevent
Mhm.
you from even like going after the more that you're made for and want. So,
That's so
what are some of the like some of the scenarios that you either have experienced, or you can say hypothetically I wrote a script for this type of a situation, but like what are some of the ones that you address in those scripts?
yeah, I mean, everything in it is something I have had to respond to. And I know that you can use ChatGPT for this stuff too. This was all before ChatGPT, but it is still really helpful to at least have a little template to start with that has the right tone of voice, and then you can adjust
Yes.
from there. So let's see, some of the things that I address are if the client is not happy with the designs. To be honest,
Mm,
has not happened to me very often
yeah.
or at all,
But
but I
just
know
to
that's
know
something
what
that
to
I
say
address.
if it
I
can
know,
take
I'm
so
always
much
like,
pressure off.
yeah, I'm always like trying to be prepared for anything.
Yeah.
Thing like if the client asks for a lower price, I have a lot of responses for if the client ghosts you, whether it's after you send the proposal or it's in the middle of the project, if the client is pushing back on stuff in your contract. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of things I feel like on social media I will see designers ask questions about a scenario, and then people will just be like in the comments, fire the client.
Right.
And I'm like, that should be the absolute last
Yep.
resort. There is most likely a way to make the client happy and also stay sane.
I totally
Yeah.
agree with you. And I think like firing a client is like a last resort, but it's also like a fear response almost. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like the client wants something. I don't know how to handle this. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's like a fight response or a very protective response. And I think that it certainly is appropriate in some cases, depending on the situation. But I would also say, like, what's the growth opportunity here for you to step up and lead and like and handle it in a different way? And you also said, like, I know there's Chat GPT, but my experience with like asking Chat GPT questions or like doing some research, I kind of use it as a thought partner now to help with certain things. And I'm constantly like, ooh, Chatty, that is conventional wisdom that I would not suggest
Yeah.
that people say. My chat, I don't know, because I don't know if it's like what I put in. My Chat GPT is like a over delivering, people pleasing version of responses where I'm like, absolutely not. This is actually like disempowering the designer, making it worse, handing all of the leverage over to the client. And there are different ways to handle these conversations that, like you said, keep projects moving forward, keep both parties happy, not like, but keep it balanced and respectful. And I'm like, is this just my I hope this isn't everyone's Chat GPT giving this advice. But yeah, so I think it's just so important too to get Chat GPT is not a designer. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sure, pick its brain, but like get information from someone who's actually been through it, used it, and gotten good outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
sorry, I
I
got up
really,
in my Chat GPT soapbox there for a minute.
wow, that was great. I really appreciate. Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. I really appreciate you saying that.
Conventional wisdom isn't always the way to go. That usually is what gets us in trouble in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And you
So true.
have to do things a little bit differently. So I'm so glad that there are people out there like you helping people navigate this stuff in the day to day. So yeah, just had to
Yeah.
have had a moment there on that.
Yeah. And that is I guess, I don't know. It's like a double-edged sword. There's like pros and cons of the design education space because in many ways, it's great that you can get so much information for free anywhere and use ChatGPT, but sometimes you also have to be careful where you're getting your information from and just like remember that all these people in the Reddit comments and ChatGPT, they don't know your client and they don't know you and your business. So even with my templates, like every resource that I have, there's a disclaimer before the templates that says you edit these to fit your tone of voice and your specific situation. Because just copy pasting stuff, I think people will see right through that if it doesn't sound like you.
Yeah, and you won't feel good sending it. And all of these, I think like everything that we've talked about so far of like how you want to build deep, trusting relationships with your clients. And so that you want to keep working with them and they want to keep working with you. It's because we want to have a business that feels good to run.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to hate your job, go work for corporate.
Yeah.
Not saying every corporate person hates their job.
Yeah.
I know plenty of people that work for other people that love their job, but you don't like, you get to love what you do. And if
Mm-hmm.
there are things going on that are making you feel like it's hard, there are people out there to help you with that to make it easier.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing I see a lot is people saying, we're all just faking it till we make it, which you mentioned before. I personally hate that phrase because that
Me
is not
too.
true. There are a lot of people who know what they're doing. And I don't think I would ever want my clients to think I was faking it and that I didn't know what I was doing in design or business. And so, yeah, that is one big thing that I say a lot is that if you want to feel confident, I definitely have resources that can help.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about the fake it till you make it like sentiment. I think that also like give yourself a little bit more credit for what you do know
Yeah.
and are bringing to the table. You know, if you're listening to this and you're like you have those parts of your business that feel like wobbly and wonky. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm just like I think that there's so much out there to help you. Why spend another second feeling like you're faking it
Mm-hmm.
when there's so much out there to help you just like solve that problem, feel confident. And you don't have to be like me and Alyssa and like touch the hot stove 1,000 times to spend however many years like developing systems and processes to prevent all of the times we like got our hands burnt. Right? You can just shortcut it and
Mm-hmm. And that's
take it from
also,
people with experience doing it.
yeah. And also, I would add that's not to like shame anybody that does feel that's like they're still figuring it out because everybody has to start somewhere. Everyone is going to make mistakes. Like it took me 8 years to get to where I am now. And like even now, like there are always things that I can learn. There are always ways to grow. So yeah, it's just a process.
Yeah, it's like there's a difference between, I think, fake it till you make it versus like, I'm going to take action anyway, knowing that I'll figure it out as I
Yeah,
go
exactly.
versus I'm just going to pretend like I know what's going on and
Mhm.
hopefully nobody finds out. That's a lot of
Exactly.
pressure to put on yourself. And
Yeah.
you certainly don't have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, a couple more questions that I have for you that I ask everybody that comes on the podcast. One is, what belief about yourself did you have to change to get to where you are today?
Hmm. That's a good question. I feel like we kind of touched on the things that come to mind. Like the freelancer thing was like a big thing that I always think of as a pivotal moment, going from like, I'm a freelancer to I'm a business owner. Because just like that mindset shift, I felt like, and for me personally, at least, it gave me more confidence. And also, I do think, not, I don't think this is true, but I think there's a different perception between the word freelancer and if you just come into a room and say, I own a business. So that was definitely pivotal. Yeah. And then probably like the other thing that I would think about is like the introvert thing. Like, I don't think when I originally started doing this 8 years ago that I would like be on a podcast or speak at summits or things like that. I was definitely like always the shy kid that people had to say, to tell to speak up. And so I don't know. I don't really know. Like, I don't think there was like a pivotal moment. It was just like a gradual growth, but I am glad that that is not something that has like held me back.
That is so powerful. And I think back to the version of me too 10 or 15 years ago, that if you would have told me that I would have a podcast and I would speak at virtual events and like in-person events and do all of the things that I'm doing today, I would have been like, you are insane. Like, I can't
Yeah.
even give a presentation at this board meeting without preparing for 2 months in advance and feeling sweaty while I'm presenting to like 6 people in this, like just at a
Mm-hmm.
meeting at work. And I do
Yeah.
think that if you're anything like me, which I feel like you have a very driven desire to help other people succeed, whether that's your clients, other designers, people in your design community in Asheville, and local businesses around there. When you're driven by that type of purpose, it almost makes all of the feelings about like being like my shyness comes from like just not wanting to stand out. What will other people think of me? I don't want like all of that fear and worry about being ostracized or whatever. It all just doesn't matter because the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of why you're doing the thing that you do like ends up just silencing all of that noise.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it like so worth it to kind of like stick your neck out a little bit. So
Yeah. I think that also helps like drop that expectation of like having to go give your elevator pitch and be salesy and know how to overcome sales objections and like just go into it with the idea of building relationships, which is basically the gist of what I was talking about when it comes to giving your clients a good experience and just getting to know people.
I love that so much. Like elevator pitches and overcoming objections and all of that is like off the curriculum list in the Web Designer Academy. You will not
That's
find
what
that.
let's do.
Yeah, it's just not how we teach marketing or anything. And so it's so refreshing to hear how you have grown your business through relationships and just providing value and just being real and connecting and caring more about your clients and their results and wanting to help other designers experience that as well. So, where can everybody go to connect with you, get their hands on your resources, get in your world, build a relationship with you, and learn from you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I would love to connect. My website is ampeddesigns.com. So it's ampddesigns.com. And I have a freebies page with tons of stuff for designers. I also have a YouTube channel that is, the handle is Make Your Design Matter. And I should also mention that I do offer consulting for designers. It is a monthly Voxer chat subscription called the Design Business Helpline. And with that, you can basically just like chat me anytime you have like a difficult client situation or you're like stuck on something in your process or not sure how to respond or what to put in the proposal or really like anything related to process communications boundaries. And it's really easy. You can just get like quick actionable advice instead of having to just like book a session every time you need something. So yeah.
I love that. That's a brilliant offer. That is so good.
I like it because it's also more conversational and you
Yeah,
can just like chat back and forth. So yeah.
I love it. So good. Well, Alyssa, thank you so much for being here on the show. It's been really, really fun connecting and getting to know you. We'll link up all of that in the show notes. So everyone, you can go check out ampeddesigns.com, get your hands on the freebies, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and get some design, I don't know, design support, business support in your back pocket. I love it so much. So
That's what I
thank you
say.
so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. I love chatting with you.
Hey, so before you go, quick question for you. Have you been listening to the podcast for a while and are curious if the Web Designer Academy is right for you? If that sounds like you, request an invitation to our next open house where you'll get to attend our next live strategy call and then take a tour of the program with me and get all of your questions answered. All you got to do to get your invitation is go to webdesigneracademy.com/open house, fill out a quick form telling me more about your web design business and your goals. And if it looks like I can help, I'll send you a link to join us at our next open house. Zero pressure, zero commitment, just a chance for you to check it out and see if it's the right fit. To get the date and time of our next open house and request your invitation, just go to webdesigneracademy.com/open house. That's webdesigneracademy.com/open house.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.